Today's author is me, TG Wolff, with another story from my industrial Cleveland universe. Check out all of Detective Kean Kelly and Patrolman Great McPherson's cases in the last seasons of Mysteries to Die For. Find them on the podcast or read them in the ebook or print anthology.
Yay, intro. Cool. Welcome to Mysteries to Die For.
Welcome to Mysteries to Die For.
This very special episode.
I am TG Wolff, and I'm here with Jack, my piano player and producer. This is a podcast where we combine storytelling with original music to put you at the heart of a mystery. All stories are structured to challenge you to beat the detective to the solution. Jack and I perform these live front to back. No breaks, no fakes, no retakes.
Kind of.
The rules for law and order create the boundaries for civil coexistence, and ideally, the backdrops for individuals, families, and companies to grow and thrive. Breaking these rules puts civil order at risk. And while murder is the big daddy of crimes, codified ordinances across municipal subdivisions, counties, states, and countries show the nearly endless ways there are to create mayhem. This season, we put our detective skills to the test. This is Season 8, Anything But Murder. And we are at Episode 11, where industrial espionage is our featured crime. This is Hoodwinked and Bamboozled by TG Wolff. All right, Jack.
Crazy.
So what are we doing for music today?
Well, today, TG, we have a very special episode because you see, we're not in the same city. Isn't that mind-boggling, viewers? How can this be?
Viewers, listeners.
Listeners, whatever you're doing. You are a viewer if you're on YouTube. You might not be watching it because it's just a still image, but you are still a viewer.
That is true. I have been corrected.
But anyway, what you are hearing, folks, is music, but not played live because, unfortunately, I don't have a piano. So in the future, when we do these remote episodes, I will have a piano, and you'll still have live music, but it'll be live music from Muncie as well as a speaker from Fort Wayne. So basically, the music you're going to hear during the story, I haven't written yet, but clearly you're hearing it, so I have written it in the future being between when you're hearing it. You get the point. But anyway, so you'll hear that song. It's a brand new song. Crazy, amazing. I hope it is, at least. I haven't written it yet. So yeah, I hope you enjoy that song.
We always like listening to Future Jack. Future Jack's brought us some good stuff in the past.
He has. Wait, how does that work? He has brought us good stuff in the past. Future Jack has done well in the past.
I wondered if you would catch that.
That doesn't really make sense, actually. But I digress. Future Jack's going to do some good work. But he won't be Future Jack to you. He'll just be slightly not as past Jack, you know? There's two past Jacks here. I am the first one. I guess I'm the second one, aren't I? Who knows?
I think you're present time Jack.
Yes, present time. But I won't be present time when the listeners are listening to this.
We'll both be.
Unless it's live. Unless we're live streaming it, which we're not. So I'm always past Jack.
All right, past Jack, are you ready to get going with this story?
I am. I'm so excited. I can focus all of my attention for once because I don't have fingers to be tip-tapping around.
All right, let's hope I wrote you a good story then.
Yep, I got all 4 brain cells firing.
All right. Let's start then with Worse Than Death. November 1895, and the weather in my hometown of Cleveland, Ohio was running rampant. Just last week, midday temperatures were a comfortable low 70s. This week, 40s during the day and freezing at night. Inside the thick walls of the Cleveland Police Headquarters, the heat that reached my bullpen where the desk sat could best be described as meager. Bundled in my coat, my neck wrapped in the blue and white scarf my sister Payne knitted, my fingers lacked all mobility. It presented a problem, as the task at hand was to type. The report was the final step in closing the latest investigation in which I supported Detective Kean Kelly. Once filed, the case of the philandering philanderer would be in the hands of the lawyers and judge. I cupped my hands, held them to my mouth, and blew hot air across my frigid fingers. The warmth did little to ease the ache, but I put them to work on the keys. Upon receiving proof of her husband's dalliance, the suspect proceeded to heat the poker in the fireplace and apply it to her husband's McPherson. I lifted my head to the mountain of a man coming toward me. I'm nearly finished with the Bolton report, Detective. Cian Kelly was an Irishman by both birth and looks. He had thick blonde hair, worn in the current fashion. His suits were always well fitted, certainly a challenge for his tailor given the difference between his shoulder and hips. He was a good detective and a fair superior officer. There was only one thing about him I took issue with: his appreciation of my sister. And her of him. The green and white scarf she knitted him peeked out from under his greatcoat. I went to train in Columbus for a month, and I come back to a new chair permanently set at the dinner table. You'll have to leave that for now, Kelly said. A call came in from a Charles Teeling of Franklin Avenue, specifically asking for me. The message said the matter was urgent, but gave no details. Teesling, I repeated, as I collected the kit I had created upon my return from Columbus. In it was everything I would need to investigate and collect evidence at the scene of a crime. You know the fellow? Kelly asked, the question over his shoulder, as he led the way to the main stairs. Perhaps a relation, I called to him. Uncle Alistair collaborated with the Teesling when Payne and I were children. I doubt it's the same man. He was 100 years old and of questionable sanity. Bundled against the weather, we hurried to the stables, and the enclosed carriage Kelly signed out for us. He drove. This was a recent change in position. Where he previously liked being driven around the city, now he preferred that I sit with pencil at the ready to record his orders, speculations, and ideas. I've had worse jobs. The cab's protection was appreciated as we trundled up the Superior Viaduct. High above the Cuyahoga River, the wind was merciless any time of year, and twice as bad in the gray and cloud-covered months of November through February. Back on solid earth, we had only a few miles to go before we pulled up in front of a 2-story Victorian home with a fence in the front yard filled with bicycles and tricycles and 1 or 2 unicycles. Kelly chuckled. Well, this ought to be good. I led the way to the sidewalk and opened the ornate gate. We crossed through the cycle graveyard and climbed the steps to the large oak front door with beveled glass. I rang the bell. Almost immediately, a small, stooped-over man shuffled into view. Not 1, not 2, but 3 locks could be heard opening. Door opened. He looked from Kelly to me to my uniform. Cleveland Police. It's about time. Please come in. While he didn't recognize me, I did him. This was the same man Alistair collaborated with more than 10 years ago. Detective Cian Kelly. He held his identification low, for stooped as he was, Teeling was almost half Kelly's size. I received a message to come on an urgent affair. This is Patrolman Grant McPherson, he said as an afterthought. Teesling, however, caught my name. His blue eyes sparkled with welcome. Grant! Oh, Granty, look how you've grown! He hugged me, which did not impress Kelly. Yes, sir, I stammered. You look good too, sir. He arched as far back as his curved spine allowed and laughed. Sir, I will never be sir to you, my boy, will I? Caught between a rock and a hard place, I did not look at my superior. No, Tink. Charles Tink Teesling crackled with joy. That's right, I knew. Tink, I can't find a blessed thing, a familiar voice shouted. Your filing system needs to go the way of dinosaurs. Kelly inhaled sharply, and then he slanted his eyes to me. Is that your Uncle Alistair? I closed my eyes and nodded. Another McPherson mess, he complained, and none too quietly. Who's dead? Who's dead this time? Oh, dear Lord, Tink said, color draining from his face. Someone is dead? Who is it? Do I know them? I couldn't bear it if it were Minnie. Kelly bent over until they were eye level. "If anyone should know who died, it's you, Mr. Teasling." "Me?" Tink was shocked, appalled at the suggestion. "Why should I know about such happenings?" "You called me, a detective, on an urgent matter," Kelly continued in a scolding voice. "Nothing is more urgent than death." "Ah, it's worse than death. The dead can wait. I cannot." The declarations revealed a tiger where a mouse had stood. "I've been burgled, hoodwinked, duped, bamboozled, snookered, hornswoggled." "Enough." Kelly flexed his hands like he wanted to strangle Tink, or the closest viable throat, which was mine. "Kian, is that you?" Alistair appeared in the darkened hallway. "Thank you for coming. We have a situation." How you like it so far?
Well, it's a pretty good start, I have to say. I do love the McPhersons. They're always a rowdy bunch.
Paper everywhere. Sorry.
Yes.
Going into the next chapter. I thought
Go
you were
for
done.
it. Nope, I was,
See,
but then I felt like...
that's what happens when we're not in a room and I can't look at you to see what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was my bad. I thought you were waiting on me. You thought you were who knows what anyone was thinking. I'm going to shut up because clearly talking isn't working.
Proof that even though it's not live, it's live.
Oh yes. To the nines.
All right. Paper everywhere. It wasn't until the appearance of my uncle that I noticed the state of the house. Tink, it appeared, liked to collect things. Correction. Tink liked to collect everything. Wooden crates, birdhouses, croquet mallets, chairs. That was all in the front row. I couldn't see the second or presumably third row. "Let's sit in the parlor," Alistair suggested. He led us into the front room. The light poured in through a spotless picture window framed by towering bundles of newspaper, awaiting an excuse of a breeze to fall over. The 2 couches and 2 chairs were likewise immaculate and ensconced between a bundle of magazines that served as convenient end tables. My uncle is an engineer and an inventor. He is a slimmer version of my father, his older brother, with thick, dark red hair and equally dark brown eyes. He'd only recently started caring about the picture he presented, sweet as he was on our housekeeper, Maria Ventrello. Prior to the Signora's influence, he wouldn't have noticed if he was fully dressed, not when his mind was on a puzzle. In the calamity of Tink's home, Alistair displayed the same disregard, stepping over and around detritus without notice. "What did you get me involved in, Alistair?" Kelly sank into a chair, whisper shouting the question that was every bit of an allegation. "Tink has had his intellectual property stolen," Alistair whispered back, and I had no idea why. Tink alluded to having been burgled, so why the secrecy? Then Alistair went on. "He and I went to a symposium on the oil industry. Mr. John D. Rockefeller himself was there, and in the exhibition hall was Tink's invention. The old boy went into hysterics, tossed the display and threw the device at the salesman. Beamed him good, he did." Kelly chuckled. "I heard about a commotion. I should have known a McPherson was involved." Tink ran into the parlor, a glass dish in hand. Granty, look what I have. Your favorites." Root beer candy. My mouth watered at the sight of my childhood treat. I started to reach for one, but Kelly's stare told me my hand had better uses. Thank you, Tink, but I'm working." He picked one out and shoved it in my mouth. "And you'll do better with this." Then he turned to Kelly. "Same to you." Well, Kelly was not about to be hand-fed like a chick and selected one himself. "Mr. Teasling, now, this is good. Now, you said you were burgled. What was stolen and when?" "Right then." Tink sat on the couch, candy dish perched on his knees. "My future, and I don't know." When Kelly took a deep breath, Alistair intervened. "Tink invented a valve for use in pumping. He patented it." "That's right, I did." Tink leapt up, his arms thrown up in triumph. Root beer candies rained down, bouncing and scattering across the hard wood like marbles. "That's what Alistair and I were looking for when you arrived. The letter from the patent office that proves that Tinkinator 93 is my invention. To the library." hurried after him, passing Kelly and my uncle, who rose much more slowly. Charles, where are you?" The female voice was elder, shrill, and bossy. "Not now, Minnie. I'm on a mission." Tink waved a dismissive hand as he hurried past a plump woman in the foyer. "Excuse me, ma'am." I turned sideways to pass without brushing her in the narrow corridor created by the towers of stuff. I skidded to a stop inside French doors. The library was overflowing with books. Not on the shelves. To be honest, I couldn't see if there were shelves. In the center of the crowded cavern of tomes was a desk suitable for a Euclid Avenue mansion. Where is it? Where is it? Tink frantically flipped through the paper stacked more than a foot high. It should be here. What should be where? The woman, Minnie, had followed me in. Charles, what in the world is going on? I need a letter from the patent office, he said. She began to help him, sifting through one of the other stacks. Which one? You must have a dozen. My Tinknator 93. It's a new valve for use with fluids that eliminates the pressure variations that cause hammering and catastrophic failures. Minnie stilled, raising to her full height. Did the center look like a butterfly? No, he said, now halfway through a stack. Well, I suppose it does look like a butterfly, a very round one. You remember it then? I do, she said, returning to her task. You had all the patent office correspondence together. Well, I've been refiling, he explained. I wasn't able to find anything. There's a surprise. Kelly's gruff aside came from behind my shoulder. Mr. Cheesling, do you know of anyone who would want to steal your valve thing? He chuckled. Everyone in the oil and water industry, Detective Kelly. Why, I wouldn't put it past John Rockefeller himself to have orchestrated the thievery. Tink wasn't winning any points with Kelly. He had no realization that he was moments away from being summarily dismissed. I decided to try a different approach. Tink, to steal the valve, somebody had to see it or the paperwork, and had to have produced it. And that stealing had to happen some months ago, maybe even years. So think back. Who had access to your files either here or at your shop? I rented out the shop 18 months ago and moved all my work to the house. The rent on the building more than pays for my materials and testing. Minnie snorted disapprovingly. You wouldn't need the rent if you listened to Henry and actually produced your inventions. Stop, Kelly ordered. We are going back to the parlor and talk about this supposed theft in a calm and coherent manner. Alistair had to pull Tink away, but soon the group was seated back in the parlor. Madam, Kelly began, you are? Minnie Brown. I'm Charles's younger sister. My husband is Henry Brown, a mechanical engineer. Thank you, Kelly said, and he introduced he and I. As Patrolman McPherson was asking, Mr. Teasley, who both knew of your invention and had access to it? Tink puffed his chest, but before he could answer, Kelly said, and if you name Mr. Rockefeller, I am walking out of this house and not coming back. Tink deflated. Begin with this house, I suggested. Who comes in? Well, just Minnie and occasionally Henry. Tink looked out a side window to the house next door. And there's Roger Schmidt, my neighbor. We used to be friendly until he took to sabotaging my work. That is it. No one else comes in. It was both sad and understandable. What about your old shop? Or the move from the shop to the house, I prompted. Who helped with the move? I did, Alistair said. If I recall, it was myself, Henry and Minnie, and the young man who was running your shop. His family was from Amsterdam, I believe. Alexander Bogert. Tink's voice had the amount of respect in it. The spelling was changed when he immigrated. A sharp young man, a man of the sea, or the lake, as our location would have it. He shook his head. It couldn't have been Alexander. What would he have to gain? Kelly did not take it as a rhetorical question. The answer is often the same. Money. Good neighbor Schmidt. Leaving my uncle to search for the patent with Tink and his sister Minnie, Kelly and I conferred amongst the bicycles. I'm not convinced a crime was committed, Kelly said, buttoning up his coat to his chin. I don't know how the man would know if something were missing from that mausoleum or not. The house is at odds with itself. Pointed to a cluster of tricycles that was almost artistic, both cluttered beyond imagination and neat as a pin. Tink could have the patent for the steam engine in one of those stacks, and it would take us a year to find it. Minnie recognized the device. Doesn't that mean it did exist at some point? Kelly led the way out of the yard to the lawn where our horse and carriage waited. Did you see the way she stiffened at the name? Dear sister Minnie saw the patent closely enough to remember details. If Teasling doesn't find the letter, he can write to the patent office. It will take time, but he would be able to prove he was granted a patent. I could see Kelly was torn between two ideas, but I didn't know which. What are we going to do? He looked to the house occupied by Roger Schmidt. It wouldn't hurt to ask a few questions. I'd like to put my eyes on the gizmo. As we watched, a man walking down the street turned up the walk to the Schmidt home, climbed the stairs, and put the key into the lock. Kelly nudged me, and I hurried forward. Mr. Schmidt? Mr. Roger Schmidt? A man of average height turned to face me. Bundled against the weather, I could only see bright blue eyes. Yes? Can I help you? You're with the police? Joined him on the porch. Yes, sir. Patrolman Grant McPherson. This is Detective Kean Kelly, I said as Kelly joined us. May we have a word? I suppose. I suggest inside. The November weather is so unpredictable. Schmidt unlocked the door and led us into a warm foyer. Hardwood shined even in the dull winter light. How can I help you? His voice echoed in the uncluttered space. Kelly took the lead. We are investigating some trouble your neighbor Mr. Teasling is having. What do you do for a living, sir? Oh, I'm an investment banker, Schmidt said. I specialize in technical and mechanical ventures. What type of trouble is Tink having? If you were from the fire department, I wouldn't have to ask. His home should be declared a fire hazard. When were you last in Mr. Teasling's home? Kelly asked. Last week. My wife and I were at breakfast when we noticed a stream of smoke coming from the back of the house. One of his experiments had, quote, gotten away from him. Schmidt removed his coat and hung it in the small closet. Come through to the kitchen. My wife isn't home, but I should be able to make a passable cup of tea. He walked down a hallway, giving us no choice but to follow. Tink is a brilliant man, Schmidt continued, but he lost something of himself when his wife died some 5 years ago. You see the state of his house? Cecily would never have permitted it. Please, do sit. Kelly accepted a sturdy chair in the pin-neat kitchen. Mr. Teasling claims he received a patent for a device. Do you know if that is true? Schmidt filled a kettle with water and set it on the stove. Oh, yes. Tink was up to 15, I believe. As I said, he's rather a genius. He answered Kelly as he collected tea, cups, and plates. I'll help, I said, encouraging Mr. Schmidt to sit opposite Kelly. Mr. Schmidt, have you invested in Mr. Teasling's inventions? Schmidt shook his head, sadly. It's been a topic of conversation more than once, and, I'm afraid, it's caused a rift between us. The simple truth is, Tink is a bad bet. He hasn't the fortitude to bring a product to market, let alone return a profit for investors. It's too bad. With the right partner, there is money to be made. When the kettle whistled, I pulled the hot water into the waiting teapot. Have you seen the patents? I asked. All of them? I wouldn't go as far as to say all of them, Patrolman. Do you recall one called Tinkinator 93? Kelly asked. That was the most promising, Schmidt said. It was a rather simple device that promised to be the solution for a condition called water hammer that can create devastatingly high pressures in pipes. He filed for the patent in 1893. I believe there is also a Tinkinator 91 and 94. Different devices, mind you. Kelly did not suffer eccentrics well, and it was clear the conversation was not endearing Tink to him. Mr. Teasling claims he saw the Tinkinator 93 while at a trade show today. He apparently became rather agitated. Would you know anything about it? Schmidt was taken aback. I was at the convention center looking for potential new investments. I was at the other end of the floor when a commotion broke out. I only saw the aftermath some time later. I'd like to talk to the man involved, Kelly said. Would you have any information about who he is? Oh, a man by the name of Bogert. Schmidt accepted the mug of tea, holding it close for warmth. Alexander Bogert? I asked as I set the mug in front of Kelly and one for myself. Yes, that's correct, he said. He and I have spoken a few times. We just scheduled a time for him to meet my partners and present his products. He's working from a small shop and needs an infusion of capital to grow into a space of his own. Over the hot tea, Schmidt continued to talk about his business and the changes he saw on the horizon. He was a shrewd man, one who knew his business well. Had I money to invest, I certainly would entrust it to Roger Schmidt. Uncle Alistair met Kelly and I at police headquarters, driving us to my father's house in time for dinner. I had recently moved back home. The allure of living on my own in a rooming house quickly lost its charm, giving the warmth and filled pantry of the home where I grew up. My father was one of the best surgeons of our time. He built a large house for my mother, who died while Payne and I were still young. Uncle Alistair has taken over the third floor, originally conceived for limited help, but now serving both as the sleeping quarters and his home laboratory. Alistair was an engineering professor at the nearby Case Institute of Technology. Father Payne and I had bedrooms on the second floor. There were 2 guest rooms that were rarely empty. The newest addition to our family was Maria Ventrello, a pregnant widow from Florence. Her husband's family turned her out when he died. My father took her in, where she earned her room and board by declaring she was our housekeeper. Never had our home smelled so delicious. We sat for dinner. My father at the head of the table, I on his right, Payne on his left. Kelly was next to my sister. Maria was next to me, her chair angled to accommodate the size of her belly, and Alistair was at the other end of the table. The Romans, they were masters of the water, she said in her thick accent. She turned to Alistair. How do you say aquedotto? Aqueduct, he translated, though my uncle's knowledge of the Italian language was elementary. Yes, the aqueduct arches are in the countryside around my Tuscany. They are very beautiful and deliver the water to the peoples. Don't know if they use the valve things. Well, this particular valve would be used in pipes rather than aqueducts, my uncle explained. They are something that would be used in factories or manufacturing. Your friend Teasling is a character, Kelly said. Do you think he's in his right mind? Alistair frowned. I understand why you would ask, Ian. Certainly he has lost some of the edge that made him the top man at the railroad, but he's not a fool. Did you find the patent letter? Not that particular one, Alistair admitted. According to Tink, 3 are missing. Kelly grunted noncommittally. I knew he was thinking because I thought the same. They were somewhere in that disaster of a house. Alistair set down his silverware. I'm asking for a favor, Kean. Look into the case. If you find no proof, I'll accept your decision. I respect you. Payne smiled at the approval and openly covered Kean's large hand with her smaller one. I'll give it what time we can, Kelly said, making it clear I was in it as deep as he was. Understand that even if he's correct, patent infringement isn't a criminal offense. It's civil. Teasling would need to consult an attorney and likely sue and prove infringement. Understood, Alistair said. Thank you. Picked up Maria's hand and kissed her knuckles. And thank you for this delicious meal.
Ew. Gross. Hello?
Hello. In for a penny.
Hi. What about a pound?
What?
I said in for a penny.
In for a penny. In for
I
a
said,
pound.
what about a pound? Yeah, okay. Anyway, moving past whatever that was.
Sorry, my voice was breaking up. I had to take a couple sips of water.
Oh, okay. It was just very confused. It's like, cool. All right. Again, something I wouldn't have done if I could see you. I would have known what you were doing.
You would have.
Instead, I'm sitting here just like, what? Anyway.
It has a challenge that we had not anticipated, eh?
That it does.
Okay, we have 2 more chapters and then the deliberation.
Okay.
All right, so in for a penny.
Out for a pound. Well, in for a pound. I gotta shut up.
Kelly walked out of his office just as I finished typing the notes from our interviews with Tink and Mr. Schmidt. He had a knack for knowing exactly when I was about to have a moment of time to myself and squelching it. I want to begin with the Belgian, Bogart. Sign us out a carriage and meet me downstairs in 10 minutes. That meant I had to run. The stables were a block over, and if there was a line or the horses weren't yet saddled, time would not be on my side. As it happened, Kelly walked out of the main door just as I pulled up. He came around to the driver's side, relegating me to the passenger seat once again. Yeah, I know how to say that word. I typed it, but I can't say it. Relegating me to the passenger seat once again. Alexander Bogart is running Charles Teasling building, Kelly said, driving west once again. He helped Teasling move out of the building, and then some year later has a gadget that is the spitting image of his landlord's patented device. There is opportunity there. Bogart also managed to attract the attention of Mr. Schmidt, the investment banker, I said. Do you think it was the valve? Certainly Mr. Schmidt would have recognized Tink's device when he saw it. The central viaduct's center span was open for a freighter passing up the Cuyahoga to the steel mills. Kelly drew the horse to a stop. Schmidt remembered the device by name. Where he would not invest in the technology under Teasling's control, perhaps he would under Bogart's. Wouldn't that be risky, I asked? Schmidt knew there was a patent. The bridge set back in place, and Kelly urged the horse forward. A calculated risk. As I said, infringement isn't criminal. I don't know that proving it is easy. The financial risk of discovery would likely be borne by Bogart. Once across the river, we turned north, past St. Malachi Catholic Church, and descended to the river valley. Among the soot-stained buildings was a single-story brick structure, long and narrow. The sign read, Cuyahoga Mechanisms. The barn-style doors were wide open. Heat spilled from the forge, melting the frozen morning. I hailed the nearest worker and was given directions to Bogart's office. Enter, he shouted at my knock. Mr. Alexander Bogart, Kelly said, for while the man may have invited entry, he had not taken his attention from his workbench. He looked over his shoulder and, at the sight of us, abandoned his project. Yes, I'm Mr. Bogart. The man was my contemporary. Dressed in a workman's pants, his shirt was tucked in, sleeves rolled to the elbows, with the top 2 buttons open. Sweat soaked the shirt, adhering to his chest. Notably, he had a black eye. Kelly adeptly opened the line of questioning about the prior day's incident. Bogart did not accuse Tink of the assault, acting as though it were a stranger, and not his landlord who had colored his eye. In the end, Bogart reluctantly admitted that it was Tink, but he had no interest in pressing charges. Mr. Teasling saw that my radiator loop included a valve, one that he said he invented. He accused me of making it, which I denied. He then demanded I return it and began attacking my display. When I and his companion tried to contain him, he lashed out, striking me. Bogart shoved his fists into his pockets. I've known Mr. Teasling for over a year. He was acting out of character. May I see the device? Kelly asked. This way. Bogart took us across the shop floor where 5 men worked pouring molten metal into molds. In the corner, next to a door, was propped one of the large bodies being cast, connected to lengths of pipe. These were fairly large by my own standards, nearly 3 feet high. Bogart picked up a wrench from a nearby work table and began disassembling the pipe connected in a loop to the top and the sides of the device. His deft hands worked quickly, and when complete, he didn't point to the large freestanding gadget, but handed Kelly a bulbous device that fit in his hand. Here it is. Kelly gauged the weight, tossed it lightly, and like a call. This is what you were promoting at the event? No, Bogart said. laying his hand on the larger cast. "This is my pump. I have several investors interested." "Where did you get the valve?" Kelly asked. Bogert took a deep breath and shook his head. "I don't recall. It's just one of the bits and pieces that's been around here for a while." Kelly handed it to me. It was a solid 2 or 3 pounds. The casing was bolted together, so I could not verify if there was a butterfly inside. I returned the gadget to Bogert. "We understand that you helped Mr. Teasling move out of the building." "It was the only way to get him out." Bogert spoke with an air of annoyance for the first time. "He was to be out by April 1st. I come in to find no fewer than 50 crates. I kept finding papers and such for months after. Mr. Teasling hid things everywhere." "Did you ever come across letters from the U.S. Patent Office?" Kelly asked. "Yes," Bogert said. "They were mixed in with receipts for coal and old grocery lists." Kelly crossed his arms in accusations. "Did you read the patent letters?" "Of course I did," Bogert said without hesitation. "It made excellent lunchtime reading. Mr. Teasling laid a solid foundation in his ideas." "And what did you do with the letters?" "Well, I set the whole lot aside and gave it to Mrs. Brown, that's Mr. Teasling's sister, when she came to collect the rent. I told her they were in the crate so that she would not mistake it for trash." Kelly asked Bogert 5 different ways if he produced the Tinkanator 93. Bogert answered no each time, but did finally acknowledge that he was capable of production with some retooling. In the course of the conversation, it came up that Bogert's neighbor was Henry Brown, Tink's brother-in-law. "I understand they built the 2 buildings together," Bogert said. "Mr. Teasling made switchgear for railroads, his own design. They worked so well that the New York City and St. Louis Railroad bought the design and moved the production to their own shops. Mrs. Teasling died just after. It's a sad story, really. Mr. Teasling had the money we all dream of making and lost the reason for making it." "That's when you took over?" Kelly asked. "It was about a year later. Mr. Teasling was using the space more as a laboratory, just him and 1 or 2 day workers. I needed space, and a mutual friend made the suggestion." Kelly handed back the valve. "Would that friend be Mr. Roger Schmidt, the investment banker?" "Why, yes. Do you know him too?" Bogert set the valve on the pump. "We have met," Kelly said honestly. "Does Mr. Schmidt also take an interest in Mr. Brown's business?" Bogert hooked his thumbs on his suspenders. "Unfortunately not, for Mr. Brown's sake. He had been looking for investors and was getting pretty desperate from what I heard. He made a pitch to Mr. Schmidt when he was down here. Afterward, Mr. Brown was not happy. But he must have found someone to invest. He's hired more help and a shipment leaves once or twice a week." "What is his business?" I asked. "Well, he's a mechanical fabricator, like me. But I hear from the boys," he nodded to the men working behind us, "that he's into smaller devices and joiners." "You don't know for yourself?" Kelly asked. Bogert shook his head. "Neither of us really has time to talk, and he's private about his work. It's his wife I know better. Mrs. Brown comes for the rent the 1st of each month at noon. She is a very observant woman and very punctual." Bogert's goods. Kelly and I left the warmth of Mr. Bogert's shop for the mirror image of the building across the lot. Same size, same windows and doors, same brick exterior. Only the sign differed. Brown Mechanical. The exterior doors here were closed. I opened the one labeled office, and Kelly walked through. Twice the number of men were at work here, and instead of hot, the factory was noisy. I couldn't have heard my thoughts if I shouted them. A walled-off space to our right proved to be the actual office. Inside the heavy door, the noise was a dull roar. "Can I help you?" A young man had a flat, long face that looked perpetually bored. "Detective Kelly from Cleveland Police to see Mr. Brown," I said. The man looked down to his calendar. Kelly covered nearly the entire page with an outspread hand. "We don't have an appointment." The secretary's gaze tracked up Kelly's arms to his intractable face. "I see. One moment." He left his chair and disappeared through a door behind him. He promptly returned, followed by a businessman. "Detective, I'm Henry Brown. How can I help you?" The man with the handlebar mustache wore a shirt bleached to a snow white. His red suspenders were bold and daring against the winter weight of gray pants. Kelly introduced me and explained our investigation. "Mrs. Brown told me about dear Tink's breakdown." There was a sadness in his voice. "He just hasn't been the same since his dear wife passed. He is a great inventor. Perhaps I should say was. Tink lost his touch. It's fortunate that he took the railroad deal when he did." Kelly allowed Brown his opening statement and then steered the conversation into the lines of interest. "Were you aware of the patents Mr. Teeling holds?" "In general terms," Brown said. "Minnie, that's Mrs. Brown, spoke about them on occasion. Tink is very proud of his patents. It's almost as if they were trophies that prove he was here and did something noteworthy. She tries to help her brother with his bookkeeping, but it is a monumental task." "Did you see any of the patents yourself?" Kelly pressed. "No, I can't say that I have. Tink keeps them as the house, and, well, that's a place I prefer not to go. To the extent that I can, Tink comes to our house or we dine out together." "Would you give us a tour of your factory?" Kelly asked. "I'd like to understand what you do and how it differs from your neighbor, Mr. Bogart." Brown stilled, a soft smile growing as he contemplated how to respond to the odd request. He had no reason to turn us down, so we were given a tour. He and Kelly walked together, with me behind. I heard nothing of what he said. The sound of hammer on metal dulled my hearing to the point of deafness. The floor was organized into 3 lines with men stationed along the length. All worked on small products. Crates at the end of the lines held finished products, the first one of which was similar to the valve gadget Bogart had and Tink recognized. I couldn't get Kelly's attention. He had not stopped when I did and now was some distance away. And so, while I am not proud of myself, I pocketed one. The tour ended with going through a door, one that led to Brown's office. The silence was a true gift. Kelly looked down at the drafting table. He lifted a hand-drawn sketch. "A new product?" he asked. Brown nodded. "It's in the prototype phase. The industry is eager for a solution. We believe we'll be the first to market and will have a distinct advantage." "We?" Kelly asked. "You have a partner?" "My wife. Minnie drew the sketch. She has a brilliant mind and practically photographic memory." He sighed. "We have developed a system of a sort. She sketches, I improve. It's worked very well for us. If she weren't a woman, she would have made an excellent engineer." I had questions, but apparently Kelly was satisfied as we promptly bid Henry Brown goodbye. Once inside the carriage, I revealed my booty. It isn't identical to the one Bogart had, but it is very close. Kelly inspected it thoroughly. "Return to Mr. Teeling's homes," he ordered, "and do not leave until you find those patents. Get anything else you can find related, early sketches, calculations, anything that gives us a picture of the inventions." I dropped Kelly at the top of the hill where he caught a streetcar back to the station. I turned west, arriving at Tink's late in the morning. His surprise to see me turned to welcome as I explained my assignment. And so we began in the library. I stepped out of Tink's home, sweaty, dusty, and triumphant. It took 10 hours, but we had all 12 patent letters. The missing ones had been in the parlor since the beginning, practically under our elbows. The letters were neatly folded and pressed between the pages of Oscar Wilde's The Importance of Being Earnest. One of the leading women was named Cecily, Tink's wife's name. Inside the carriage, I buttoned my coat as the temperature surely edged toward the freezing point. Gone was the comfortable, bright, late fall day. A thick fog now blanketed the evening sky, an unusual occurrence. Grateful Kelly let me keep the carriage, I began the trek to the city, slowly for the visibility. Something was wrong. As I drove across town, the entire population seemed to mourn. At the stables, the quartermaster told me of the accident. The fog was thick. The viaduct was open. The streetcar conductor couldn't see until it was too late to stop. I left the book with the quartermaster and hurried down to the river to join the search and rescue. The streetcar had fallen from the viaduct, struck one of the stone bridge supports, and landed in the waters of the Cuyahoga. The river here was about 20 feet deep, and the streetcar had sunk to the bottom. It became painfully obvious that this was not a rescue mission. It was a recovery. I was chilled to the bone as I returned home. The borrowed pants I wore were too large, the coat too small. I nearly wept with relief as I closed the door behind me. I was grateful for the scent of wood fire and the heat it promised, grateful for the familiar voices raucous with life. "Grant, my boy, you look horrible. Come in. Why, you're nearly frozen." Alistair ushered me into the parlor in the welcome fire. "Maria, please bring Grant tea with a healthy dose of brandy." Payne ran in and gasped when she saw me. "What happened to you?" "Bad accident on the Central Viaduct." When my father, Kelly, and Maria joined, I explained the deadly mistake that took 17 lives. I cupped the tea, shivering as I related the damage caused by the immovable pier and the cold, deep water. It would not have mattered, I told both Kelly and my father, who lamented not being present. There was nothing any of us could do. 15 bodies were recovered, including women and children. The motormen and a few were able to jump to safety. The search will begin again in the morning. Payne brought a blanket. She wrapped it around my shoulders, her arms with it, and I let her hold me, grateful for just about every damn thing after seeing so many faces. A poke in the ribs was the distraction I needed. I set the cup down, and Payne moved away. Digging into the inside pocket, I retrieved Tink's book. My hand trembled as I held it out to Kelly. Tink's patent letters are in between the pages. Kelly sank onto a davenport and extracted the folded papers. One by one, he laid them out on the coffee table. He stopped, holding up one page to see it better. Alistair sat next to him, leaning in to see. Tink is a talented inventor. Did you figure out who stole his inventions? It was his brother-in-law, Henry Brown, who made the device, Kelly said. He claims to have never seen Mr. Teasling's patent documents. And I believe him. Alistair furrowed his eyebrows. But then, how? All right, Jack, we're at the deliberation.
Sorry, I have to remember to unmute like 40 different things at once. Let me make sure that I'm actually unmuted. Okay, I am. All right, sorry. So walk me through. Tell me who did it.
All right, so Kelly may have a clue, but Grant and Alistair can use our help. There is no question that Charles Tink Teasling invented the Tinkinator 93.
Yes.
There is also no question that Henry Brown, Tink's brother-in-law, produced it.
Correct.
So the question for you, Jackalope, is who orchestrated getting the design from Tink to Brown?
Okay.
So here are the suspects in the order that we met them. Minnie Teasling Brown, so she's Tink's caregiver sister and Brown's silent partner.
Yes, she's an interesting one.
She is an interesting one. Then we have another interesting one in Roger Schmidt, who's an investment banker and Tink's neighbor. We have Alexander Bogart. He's a mechanical fabricator and Tink's renter.
I see.
And we have Henry Brown, who is also a mechanical fabricator and Tink's brother-in-law.
Okay,
so here are the facts as Kelly and Grant know them. Tink Teasling filed for and received a dozen patents, including one for a valve that he called Tinkinator 93. At a trade show, he saw the valve on display by Alexander Bogart.
Interesting.
Tink is a widower and a hoarder. He was certain the patent documents were in his house. Only two people regularly accessed the house, his sister Minnie and his neighbor Roger Schmidt.
Yeah.
Henry Brown long ago stopped going to the house.
Why would he need to after he stole the document?
Minnie Brown supports her brother with the little things in life. She has a good memory and attention to detail, which helps to keep the house from totally falling apart. Minnie remembers seeing the patents as she managed her brother's mail. Tink and Henry Brown constructed their shop side by side. Brown fabricates small devices for sale to local distributors. He claims all his devices were a joint design between he and Minnie. Her mechanical drawings decorate his office like artwork. His business recently improved, with shipments now leaving at least several times a week. Tink now does his inventing from home and leases out his shop to Alexander Bogart. For some time after Tink moved out, though, Bogart continued to find files Tink hid in odd places, including the patent for the Tinkinator 93. Bogart admitted to studying the document, but then added it to the crate for Minnie to pick up with the rent.
Interesting.
Bogart admitted to using the valve in a pipe display that showed off his invention, a large pump. He said he did not make the valve, but doesn't recall where the valve came from specifically. Neighbor Roger Schmidt admits to seeing the patent and thinking it was a worthwhile invention. He had a falling out with Tink when he declined to invest in the gadget, not trusting Tink to get it to market or make a profit. He is considering investing with Alexander Bogart, further angering Tink. So, Jack, who infringed on Tink's patent idea?
Okay, there are too many characters. I'm used to there being two guys and they're basically the same person, This is what I need.
You have 4 characters.
That's too many, I tell you what.
Can you eliminate anybody?
Maybe I could. Okay.
So you have Minnie, the sister.
Minnie I don't trust.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you want her
and
colored
Alexander
yellow?
Bogart.
Yep. Alexander is the younger inventor / engineer.
Yes, young Bogart. So he shows up with it at a trade show, and he said he didn't really know where he got it from.
Yeah, he said it was just one of the things lying around his shop. He didn't really think about it, he just used it.
Which, if Tink is the person that Tink is, he very well could have just left that around the shop, right?
That is true. Yep, he's a hoarder.
So he very well could have just left it in there, or have bought it off of the guy across the hallway or whatever.
Yep, he could have done either one.
Now, I think Minnie is the mastermind here.
Okay.
Minnie sees all the potential that Tink has, but also is aware of the lack of brains Tink has.
We'll call it
a
common
genius.
sense.
Yeah, he's a dumb genius, which too many of them are. So I think she has the perfect, position to be doing it. She could give it to whoever she wants, get the money for it. Apparently she does designs for the guy, so there's a very good chance that she did the design for the other guy, the manufacturer. Who was the manufacturing man again?
Her husband, Henry.
Well, that explains it even further. She has the perfect opportunity, on behalf of Henry, to go steal an invention, bring it back to him, whether it's both of them or it's him asking her to do it. That's the perfect situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who else was there? Who was the fourth?
The neighbor who's the investment banker, Roger Schmidt.
Roger Schmidt's a red herring. He exists because that I have trouble with more than 2 suspects. And you were like, let's throw him on here, throw Jack off. He's not used to there being options.
If there's only 2 suspects, it's not a mystery, it's a choice.
I know. I'm used to that choice. I got a 50-50 shot. It works pretty well for me. You can check the score. I'm doing pretty well. I'm not, killing it, I'll admit.
I haven't score kept this season, but last season you did win.
Last season I did well. I did win. I feel like a win really is if you can keep me at a 50-50 rate for a season, that's a win. Because normally I can manage to get more than I fail.
I think it's anybody who works in mystery if you get more than 50%. Because sometimes you could figure out the right person but not the right why, or the right why but not the right person.
Yep.
Or, sometimes we get those ones where there's 2 people and you get one of them. So there's lots of ways to get half points.
The multiple choice ones, those are the ones that screw me up. I also am never told, Jack, you need to think of 2 people. And those always screw me up, and they really have nothing to do with me. I'm innocent. I'm an innocent man. Billy Joel said it himself. Yeah. I'm really just trying to live my life, but these people are like, hey, let's just throw a wrench, and the wrench hurts.
Yeah.
The wrench hurts. So, no, I think it's Minnie and possibly the husband. I mean, I don't see how the husband isn't involved if Minnie is. I don't see how one of them is involved and the other isn't.
It is not a mystery that Henry is the one producing it. That is not part of the question. The question was, did he steal it?
I don't know if he asked Minnie to steal it. I don't know if he stole it. Minnie has such a better opportunity to have stolen it. I feel like it has to be her. Okay,
so you're locking in on Minnie?
Minnie stole it. Yes, that is my 2 cents.
Okay, before we get into the big reveal, I want to remind everybody that this season's ebook companion is available from all your favorite digital bookstores. And print lovers, check out Amazon for the trade paperback. Look for Anything But Murder, Larceny, and Lies. All right, and now we are ready for A Day of Mourning.
Let's do it.
Sunday felt as if all the city had lined the banks of the Cuyahoga, awaiting news of the missing and mourning the dead. My family and I were among the number that surely counted in the tens of thousands. "Who is that?" Payne asked, leading me to a prominent man standing tall and determined in the face of adversity. "His name is Hulitz. His brother is one of the missing. They said he stood there all night." Payne huddled closer, her head resting on my shoulder. "The poor man." "McPherson!" The shout garnered attention from my clan. It was me that was being called, as it was Kelly doing the shouting. I climbed up the slope behind us as he made his way down. "Yes, sir?" I called up, worried because I was in my civilian clothes. Kelly didn't believe in off days, no matter how the schedule read. Uncharacteristically, he didn't yell out what was ever top of his mind. Instead, he waited until he could pull me into a comparatively private space. "Did you look at the dead and missing list?" "No," I said. "When I left last night, it was still being compiled. I haven't gone in today." I looked down to indicate my inactive status. He withdrew a page from inside his pocket and shoved it into my hand. "About halfway down," he said. My eyes scanned the list, but none were familiar until Mrs. Minnie Brown. A hushed gasp rose from the crowd. I followed the collective attention to men working from a boat just offshore, hauling lines out of the water. The gasp turned to an anguished cry as the badly damaged body of Lewis Holtz was pulled out of the water. "Does Henry Brown know about his wife?" I asked, without turning away. "He does," Kelly said. "He was notified last night." "And Tink?" "I don't know." The tragedy of the Central Viaduct occupied everybody's thoughts for some time. The motorman who survived was arrested and later released on bond. He couldn't explain how the accident happened to the satisfaction of the coroner or the police. The latest theory put the fault on the heavy fog and the mist, combined with a new stopping system that required the conductor to override the default. The conductor performed the same steps as he had several times that night, not seeing the open viaduct until it was too late to stop. Henry Brown and Tink were devastated by Minnie's death. Alistair had brought Tink to our home and set him up in a guest room. His son was traveling back from Cincinnati. Kelly and I found Brown in his office, his gaze far away. "Mr. Brown," Kelly said in a soft voice that always surprised me. "May I have a moment, sir?" Brown startled, then slowly rose to his feet. "Yes, detective, of course. Come in. What can I do for you?" Kelly motioned me to a chair and took the other. "I'm afraid this is a delicate topic." "Why, I see," Brown said gravely, retaking his chair. "What is this about?" "Mrs. Brown, and," he pointed to the framed sketches, "her design. Mr. Brown, we have reason to suspect that those were not her original conceptions, but were those of her brother." His eyes widened in surprise and then moved to the sketches, from one to another to another. "Did you know?" Kelly asked. "No," Mr. Brown said quickly, softly. "But perhaps I suspected, at least at first. Then I convinced myself that genius ran in the family. Are you certain?" "We had an engineer compare your valve to the Tinkanator 93, Kelly said. "The details were too exact to be a product of chance." Uncle Alistair had been the engineer. He dismantled the valve that I pilfered and compared each piece to the sketch on the patent. His confidence rose when he discovered a mistake on the patent, more likely a slip of the pen, but the same flaw was present in the real thing. Brown closed his eyes. A sad smile tugged at his lips. She had a memory like no other, and she had a talent for sketch. If Minnie saw something, she could draw it. "Why did she do it?" I asked. "She was a devoted wife, but she was also a devoted sister." A tear rolled down his cheek. "When Tink and I opened our shops, we thought we would become the captains of industry. For a time, we did pretty well. Then Cecily died, and Tink, he lost his spirit. He and I worked on projects for both companies, and without him, my business fell off. Minnie asked Tink to let us use his design, but he couldn't let them go. Sometime later, she came to me with her first sketch. It was good. It was as good as anything Tink had come up with, I told her." He dropped his head into his hands. "Oh, Minnie, what did you do?" We granted him the few moments he needed to collect himself. When he lifted his head, he was no less shattered, but more resigned. "What happens next? Will you arrest me?" "No," Kelly said. "That doesn't benefit anyone. Patent infringement is a civil matter, not criminal. I suggest, rather than paying lawyers, you make an arrangement with Mr. Teasling. A partnership." "Oh, I don't know if Tink would accept a partnership. His designs are all he has left. He has you," I said. "And right now, he needs you. With you, his dreams come true. With you, perhaps Mr. Schmidt will invest." Brown nodded. "I'll make this right, as much as I can. For Minnie." The end. I was not tearing up there. My voice is just, I don't know, allergy season or something. Did you like it?
Yeah, but way to KM Rock with that. Just be like, and this was a normal story until they all died.
Well, okay, so I'm going to do this a little bit out of order. I had set the story in November of 1895 in Cleveland, and so I was doing just some background, just looking up headlines. And this streetcar accident was a real accident that happened on the date November 16th, 1895, which just happened to be the date that I picked for the story. So 17 people died, including several children, and a News Herald article from November 21st covered the accident. So I'm just going to read you a couple paragraphs from it. At an early hour Sunday morning, Augustus Rogers, the motorman in charge of the car, was arrested and brought to the central station, where he was questioned by the coroner and police officials. He stated that conductor Hoffman gave him the signal to go ahead. Asked as to how the conductor could have given the all right signal in the face of the fact that the red light signals showing that the drawbridge was open were hung on the closed bridge gates, Rogers replied that Hoffman probably thought the drawbridge was just closing instead of opening. Rogers was released after giving bond for $5,000, but that was a lot of money back then. A crowd of fully 50,000 spectators gathered at the scene of the accident Sunday morning when the search for the missing bodies was resumed. Diver Joseph Eberhardt was employed by the streetcar companies to assist in the search, and after he had been at work for 2 hours on the river bottom, he gave the pull-up signal for the grappling hooks, and the body of mail carrier Louis Holitz was brought to the surface. This next part kind of surprised me at the amount of detail it had in it. Holitz's brother had stood on the dock all night, peering anxiously through the darkness and inquiring time and time again if his brother had been found. When the mutilated body of Lewis was brought up, the brother became wild with grief and could hardly be restrained. The top of the head was almost torn off, and the face was battered in a fearful manner. The body was taken to Black and White's morgue. That was the last body that had been found.
Wow. Well, that's nice and morbid.
The amount of detail just blew me away. I mean, it seems like news reports today, I would never have thought them to be not, I'll say, sensitive. But then when I read that, I had to read it 3 times and I was like, oh my God, they actually printed that.
Yeah, that is pretty devastating.
So it was just, I don't know if it, I don't know the right word because it is an extremely sad event. But, this was fiction. I just picked a random day, and then to find out that the worst cable car or streetcar accident in Cleveland's history happened on that day was just, I don't know, I had to weave it in.
Yeah, definitely. I can see why.
I even changed the character's name. I can't remember what her name was originally, but Minnie Brown was the name of a woman who died in that accident.
Oh, dude.
I do not know if she had a husband named Henry.
Or she committed, patent infringement?
I do not know that the woman did anything like that.
We could get sued. We can get sued for slander. Well, yeah. I don't know. Slander's written, and this isn't really written. I guess this is spoken.
I don't know, but it turned her into a fictional character to honor her real life.
We could be accused for libel. This is libel.
I used her name, not her actual person. I'm sure there's many Minnie Browns over the course of
You don't know that. Maybe they were all Mega Browns.
They're horrible.
Sorry.
So let me tell you a little bit about industrial espionage.
Yes, tell me about it.
Okay, so this came from, my favorite source, Wikipedia. And it says, industrial espionage gathers knowledge about one or more organizations and takes place in 2 main forms. So it can include the acquisition of intellectual property, such as information on the manufacturing idea, techniques, basically what we had in this story. Or it can include stealing privileged information, like pricing, prospective bids, market strategies. So it can include activities like thefts of trade secrets, bribery, blackmail, try to say those 2 words together, and technological surveillance. So industrial espionage, I always say it wrong, is a really old crime. It goes back at least to the 17th century, and it shows the migration of technologies from one region or realm to another. So yeah, it was very cool as you're kind of doing research. It was through this sort of industrial espionage that techniques and knowledge developed, say, in the ancient Asian cultures migrated then, into like the Ottoman empires, and then to the Roman empires, and then to the British empires, and then across the ocean, and it came to America. So it was, it's not a new problem. And interestingly enough, the U.S. attitude toward it has changed quite a bit. When we were a new country, this type of knowledge acquisition was all but openly endorsed by the government. We created the first patent statute in 1790, and we issued our first patent to Samuel Hopkins on July 31st for a product that is an ingredient in fertilizer called potash. When I was reading some of the history, though, the way the laws were written, you couldn't get a patent here in the States if you were not like a U.S. citizen. And so it became very easy for people to steal international ideas and then bring it here, and they could patent it. So now, obviously, with everything that's going on in the world, we care a lot more about protecting our own intellectual property than certainly we did when we were a young country. So, yeah, it was an interesting read.
Yeah, definitely. Well, tell us a little bit more about the this very interesting author I heard that wrote this. I can't say I know too much of her works.
So I'm today's author, and like you, I'm not one thing. You, Jack, or you, every listener. I'm a writer, an engineer, a wife, and a mother. And what is first on the list depends on the day. Beyond the title that I claim, I'm a person who loves learning and thoroughly enjoys a good puzzle. I'm creative, and oh boy, do I get bored easily. I hold a bachelor's in civil engineering from Case Western Reserve University, which is the same one that Uncle Alistair teaches at, and an MS in civil engineering from Cleveland State University, which gives me absolutely no background in writing, but I do it anyway. Writing mysteries and engineering isn't as different as you think. Both require using logic and process to get from the start to the finish. Find me at tgwolff.com or on our podcast website, m2d4podcast.com.
Yup.
All right.
Pretty cool, our website. It's still new to me. It's not new to the rest of the world because,
it's coming along. It's a fully stood up website now.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I'm putting it on my resume.
Well, that wraps up this episode of Mysteries to Die For. Support our show by subscribing, telling a mystery lover about us, and giving us a 5-star review. And, like we just said, check out our new website, m2d4podcast.com, for links to all of this season's authors. Mysteries to Die For is hosted by TG and Jack Wolff. Hoodwinked and Bamboozled was written by TG Wolff. Music, even if those created in the future, and production are by Jack Wolff. Episode art is by TG Wolff. Join us next week for a toe tag, which is the first chapter from a fresh release in the mystery, crime, or thriller genre, and then come back in 2 weeks for our next original story where cockfighting is the featured murderless crime. It's Detective Conley Gets Down and Dirty by Jack Wolff.
Yep,
all right,
it's
Jack,
me.
take us out.
That's basically what it sounds like.